a U.S. soldier uncovers a conspiracy while searching for weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
I want to know why. This is a kill, no capture mission.
You have no idea who you're dealing with here.
You take him out.
I've got him!
On March 19, 2003, General al-Rawi flees Baghdad, giving his aide a notebook and orders to warn the officers to hide and wait for his signal point. 4 weeks later, U.S. Army Chief Warrant Officer Roy Miller and his unit are tasked with inspecting an Iraqi weapons of mass destruction warehouse. Miller informs his squad that the destination is a military storage place. Intel proposes nerve agents, choking agents, live diseases, and chemical-tipped missiles. He notes that the 101st Airborne Division had already captured the region that morning. Miller was surprised to discover that the warehouse is not secure. Looters may freely enter and depart. Miller summons Lieutenant Asira, who is in charge of the facility. Asira notifies him that there is a sniper in a neighboring tower and that the 101st Airborne Division is understaffed to successfully build a perimeter. Miller gathers his men and informs them that the weapons are located in the northwest corner of the complex, with a sniper positioned on the 5th floor of the southeast corner room. Miller devises a plan to bring out the sniper, allowing his crew to execute him. After defeating the shooter, Miller realizes that the warehouse is abandoned. Confused and upset, he says that this is the 3rd time they have discovered nothing despite apparently receiving information from the United Nations. Miller then meets with Colonel Bethel to inform him that the information they are depending on is inaccurate and will take them nowhere. Bethel tells him not to stir problems, emphasizing the need to find anything significant for media coverage back in Washington. Bethel rejects Miller's worries over faulty intelligence, telling him to focus on carrying out instructions. Later, a debriefing is given by Captain Jonathan VA, who states that they're continuing to target high-priority sites since everyone back home is anxiously awaiting the information about the weapons they found. He goes on to say that they have a thorough media strategy in place, with well-known American and British media outlets ready to cover every facet of the good news. Miller lifts a hand to indicate that much of the intelligence provided to him is unreliable and anonymous. Senior authorities swiftly allay his worries, declaring that everything is okay and ready to go. Nevertheless, Miller doesn't back down from his position, bringing up the Diania location from the previous week and how the 101st suffered losses while securing it for them only to discover it was a toilet factory. He claims there's an issue with the intelligence because of the discrepancy between what they observe on the ground and what they get. The officials remind him that his job is only to execute his commands and not to worry about how they're provided. The team's next mission site is at Al-Mansur. Afterward, CIA agent Martin Brown approaches Miller and introduces himself, asking Miller if he's going to the Al-Mansur site in Baghdad. When Miller verifies, Martin informs him he'll be wasting his time because the next location he's supposed to check was already inspected by a UN biological team 2 months ago and was also found empty. Martin then gives him his card and assures him he's correct, that this doesn't add up, and urges Miller to call him if he discovers anything. Meanwhile, Clark Poundstone, a U.S. Department of Defense official, meets returning Iraqi exile leader Ahmed Zubaydi at the airport. Poundstone is questioned by Lori Dne, a Wall Street Journal writer. She insists she has to talk directly with Mellon, but Poundstone dismisses her. While Miller and his team approach their destination, the road gets crowded by angry and desperate Iraqi civilians. Miller tells some of his troops to get out of the truck to clear the traffic, but when they become too exposed to the enemy, he orders his squad to retreat, and they continue to go without halting. Poundstone has been ordered to appoint Ahmed Zubaydi as Iraqi Prime Minister. He claims that they would hold an Iraqi Freedom Conference within the Green Zone the next day. They anticipate that representatives from all 3 major ethnic groups, Kurds, Shias, and Sunnis, will vie for various levels of authority. On the contrary, CIA agent Brown claims that Zubaydi has not been in Iraq in 30 years and feels that his return from exile has no legal basis there. Poundstone states that he's the best they have right now for a stable democracy, as he's been a help to them, and their office is extremely satisfied with all the information they've gotten from him. Martin feels Zubaydi has been selling them false information for years and calls him untrustworthy. When Poundstone claims that Martin is questioning every piece of evidence that comes in to the point where they can't make any progress, Martin responds that they can't simply hand over the country to an exile no one has ever heard of, and that the Iraqi army must play a role in stabilizing the country. Meanwhile, an Iraqi civilian named Freddie witnesses a group of Iraqi authorities entering a residence. He instantly gets into his car and drives away. The occupants at the home include General Ali, his officers, and Baghdad aides who are discussing the present situation. Among the aides is Syed, who is the host of the meeting. He states that their information is that Saddam has fled, the Americans will occupy the entire country, and they will face hard choices while their men wait for orders. He closes by stating that the decisions they make now will define Iraq's destiny. Miller hears some unsettling sounds while visiting out another unpromising website. When Miller rushes over to investigate, he finds Freddie tied to the ground by Sergeant Wilkins, who informs him that the man is out of control. Freddie calms down after being let go and informs Miller that he witnessed some BIDH party VIPs gathering in a neighboring residence. When Miller asks why he should believe him, Freddie just says he's here to help. So Miller takes Freddie with him and instructs his guys to take Freddie's car and another. If they roll over in those Humvees, the Baathists will see them coming. Miller gathers his men and briefs them on the plan. In the first car, he wants to take the Iraqi guy, Freddie, with him riding shotgun, and one of the soldiers in the back covering Freddie the entire time. The rest of the men are going to roll in the pickup truck behind them. Concurrently, a furious disagreement breaks out amongst the Baathists, and Al-Rawi intervenes to settle the matter. According to Al-Rawi, the streets are rife with disorder and bloodshed, and while Americans want to create democracy, they will soon discover they require it. So he chooses to wait for the Americans to offer him a bargain for Iraq's future, and then fight if they don't. As the meeting concludes, Miller and his men arrive at the area and observe several people leaving the home with guns. When they get into a car, Miller promptly orders his squad to capture the car and the 3 guys inside, followed by the residents. Upon realizing the situation, Al-Rawi and his men immediately make their way to escape. As the team bursts into the house, a brief gunfight ensues. Ali narrowly escapes, but Syed is captured. Miller enlists Freddie as his interpreter and queries Syed about the encounter, but the guy refuses to answer. Miller seizes Ali's notepad, and they bring Syed back to camp to question him about the WMDs and their location. Syed claims that only Ali is aware of these issues. Miller asks how he might find Ali, but Syed would only divulge his whereabouts if Miller pledges to protect his family. Before Miller can extract any information, Syed is apprehended by Special Operations soldiers. However, Miller maintains Ali's notepad. While being hauled away, Syed indicates that Miller has seized his notebook, and the Special Operations leader confronts Miller to see whether he has it. As Miller denies the claim, the two forces get into a fight, where Miller subtly hands the book to Freddie to hide it. After confirming Miller doesn't have the notebook, the Special Operations forces leave. Miller and his guys discover Freddie has left with the notepad. They quickly disperse off, and Miller soon catches up with Freddie, who is straining to get over a wall due to his prosthetic leg. Freddie claims he planned to return to deliver it to him after the prior battle. Meanwhile, DNE complains to Poundstone again, but he says the stakes are considerably higher than her work in selling newspapers. DNE claims that her paper produced reports about WMDs based on Poundstone's intelligence and now requires access to Mellon, the source of all this information. Miller travels to Martin's hotel room in the Green Zone, tells him what occurred, and hands him the journal. Martin arranges for Miller to get into the prison where Syed is being interrogated. Miller is then approached by DNE, who questions him about the false reports of WMDs. Miller bluffs his way in to see Syed. Syed, near death after being tortured, informs Miller that they did everything you asked us to during the meeting. When Miller asks what meeting he's referring about, Syed responds with one word: Jordan. Miller then confronts DNE about the fake information she released, but she refuses to reveal her source, Mellon. After Miller informs her he believes Al-Rawi is Mellon, DNE grudgingly confirms Mellon's meeting with a high-ranking official in Jordan in February. Miller believes Poundstone's guys are looking for Ali and has only one explanation. Ali stated that there was no Iraqi WMD program and is now considered a significant liability. Poundstone takes Martin's notepad away, contains Ali's safe home locations. When Miller tries to arrange a meeting with Ali, he is abducted by Ali's men following Poundstone's announcement of the decision to disband the entire Iraqi army. After a long search, Miller eventually meets Alrawi, who is revealed to be Melon. The general informs Miller that, contrary to the information Poundstone propagated, Ali assured U.S. authorities that there were no WMDs in Iraq and that the nation had stopped producing them in the early 1990s. Miller informs Ali that he wants to bring him in to present his account of the events. Ali asks Miller, "Did anyone verify Poundstone's story?" The question is rhetorical, implying that if anybody in government had wanted to get the facts straight, they could have done it easily. Instead, Alrawi says, "Your government wanted to hear the lie, Mr. Miller. They wanted Saddam out, and they did exactly what they had to do." Shortly before their meeting, the U.S. government disbanded the Iraqi army, putting the general in a precarious position. Alrawi recalls that when he came forward with his knowledge, he was promised a position in the new Iraq. However, he now recognizes that he was used as a pawn by Poundstone and his accomplices and will be disposed of at the earliest opportunity. Poundstone's soldiers assault the places specified in the notebook. When they get at the general's hiding area, he departs, instructing one man to shoot Miller. Miller manages to murder his captor and pursues Ali. Miller eventually apprehends Ali, but Freddy emerges and shoots the general, claiming that the destiny of Iraq is not his to determine. Freddy thought Alrawi was a despot and a traitor to the Iraqi people. With his only witness against Poundstone now dead, Miller tells Freddy to flee. Later, Miller writes a scathing report. He confronts Poundstone in a meeting and gives him the report, but Poundstone dismisses it, telling Miller that WMDs do not matter. Poundstone then returns to the conference, only to witness Iraqi factional leaders dismiss Zubedi, the US's pick as Iraq's leader, as an American puppet and walk out. Dan receives Miller's report by email. The recipients include journalists from prominent news organizations throughout the world. Ultimately, the ending is bittersweet. Miller can reveal Poundstone's falsehoods, but they have already caused significant damage to the Iraqi people. Although the film fictionalizes numerous people and events to tell its tale, it properly depicts how the threat of Iraqi WMDs was exploited to justify invasion, as well as the fact that no evidence of such WMDs was discovered. That's the end of the movie. We hope you enjoyed it. Check out the next recaps and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.